Imagine for a moment a woman walking a path that stretches far beyond the horizon, a path carved not by the expectations of others, but by the quiet whispers of her own soul. She walks with intention, her steps deliberate, her gaze unwavering, and her spirit unshaken. There's no crowd applauding her journey, no chorus of approval echoing in her ears, and yet she continues forward with an energy so magnetic it bends reality around her. Embracing solitude as a source of strength is a rare and powerful choice, one that requires a deep understanding of oneself and a willingness to confront the silence that most people avoid. In a world that constantly pushes connection, validation, and external noise, solitude often carries a stigma. It's mistaken for loneliness, weakness, or failure. But the woman who walks alone knows better. She understands that solitude is not a void but a sanctuary, a place where she can retreat, reflect, and reconnect with her truest self. It is in this space, away from the expectations and opinions of others, that she finds clarity, strength, and an unshakable sense of purpose. Solitude offers something that no external source can provide: the opportunity to listen deeply to one's own intuition. The woman who walks alone has learned to quiet the external chatter, the opinions of family, the pressures of society, the comparisons on social media, and instead tune in her voice. This voice doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't command, it guides. And in the stillness of solitude, she can hear it clearly. It's in these moments of quiet reflection that she makes her most important decisions, not driven by fear, not swayed by others, but grounded in her truth. This kind of solitude isn't about escaping the world or running away from responsibilities. It's about carving out space for introspection and growth. The rare woman knows that strength isn't always found in action, noise, or presence. Sometimes it's found in stillness, in taking a step back, in observing before reacting. She understands that stepping away from the crowd doesn't mean she's weak, it means she's wise. She values her mental and emotional well-being enough to prioritize time alone, even if others don't understand it. Solitude also teaches resilience. When you're walking alone, you don't have a constant stream of external reassurance to keep you moving forward. There are no hands to hold, no voices to cheer you on. It's just you and your thoughts, your fears, your dreams. And in that space, the woman who walks alone learns to trust herself deeply. She learns to rely on her own inner resources rather than depending on someone else to save her, fix her, or validate her. This self-reliance becomes a source of unshakable strength because she knows that even if everything else falls away, she still has herself. In solitude, she also discovers the difference between loneliness and being alone. Loneliness is the absence of connection, but being alone is the presence of self. The woman who embraces solitude isn't disconnected, she's deeply connected, but not in the way society often measures connection. She's connected to her inner world, to her dreams, to her vision, and to something far greater than herself. She understands that this connection is not dependent on others, cultivated within. And the strength gained from solitude also allows her to show up more powerfully in her relationships and interactions. When she emerges from her moments of solitude, she doesn't bring chaos or neediness into her connections. Instead, she brings clarity, calm, and purpose. She knows who she is, what she wants, and what she's willing to tolerate. This self-awareness allows her to set boundaries, communicate effectively, and build relationships that are based on mutual respect rather than dependency. But in a world that often views solitude as something to be feared or avoided, the woman who walks alone embraces it as a gift. She doesn't see it as a punishment, but as a privilege. It's in these moments of aloneness that she finds answers to her most pressing questions, solutions to her most difficult challenges, and insights into her deepest desires. She doesn't need the constant validation of others to know her worth, because solitude has taught her to see herself clearly without distortion. The power of solitude also lies in its ability to reveal one's true essence. When all the external distractions are stripped away, when there's no one left to impress, and when there's no audience watching, the woman who walks alone gets to meet herself fully. She faces her fears, her insecurities, and her shadows, but she also meets her courage, her brilliance, and her strength. This raw, unfiltered version of herself is not something she fears, it's something she honors. Her ability to embrace solitude as a source of strength sets her apart from the crowd. While others may run from silence, she runs toward it. While others may avoid being alone, she seeks it out. Because she knows that in those moments of solitude, she's not losing herself, she's finding herself. She's not weakening, she's strengthening. And she's not hiding, she's growing. The woman who walks alone doesn't see solitude as a temporary pause in life. She sees it as an essential part of her journey, a sacred ritual that fuels her spirit and sharpens her focus. It's in these quiet spaces that she recalibrates, realigns, and reemerges with a sense of purpose so clear that it can't be ignored. She knows that solitude isn't the absence of life, it's where life begins to make sense. And in embracing it, she finds not just strength, but freedom, clarity, and an unshakable connection to herself. The woman who walks alone possesses an unshakable self-worth that isn't tethered to the opinions, approval, or validation of others. Her sense of value doesn't fluctuate based on external praise or criticism. It's not defined by how many people like her, admire her, or accept her. Instead, it's rooted deeply in her understanding of herself, her values, her principles, and her purpose. And this woman doesn't seek validation from the world because she knows that true worth comes from within and no external force can grant or take away something so intrinsic. In a society where self-worth is often measured by superficial markers, social media followers, material possessions, physical appearance, or professional titles, the woman who walks alone refuses to subscribe to these standards. She understands that these metrics are fleeting, fragile, and ultimately hollow. They may bring temporary satisfaction, but they can never provide lasting fulfillment. Her self-worth isn't transactional. It's not something she trades in exchange for compliments, likes, or approval. Instead, it's something she carries with her like an invisible shield that protects her from the opinions of others, whether positive or negative. This unshakable self-worth allows her to stand firm in her decisions, even when they're unpopular or misunderstood. She doesn't crumble under pressure or second-guess herself because someone disapproves of her choices. She trusts her own judgment and listens to her intuition, knowing that she doesn't need the world to agree with her in order for her choices to be valid. This inner confidence doesn't make her arrogant, it makes her grounded. She doesn't need to be the loudest voice in the room to feel important, nor does she need to diminish herself to make others comfortable. Her self-worth also frees her from the endless cycle of comparison. She doesn't measure herself against others, nor does she allow someone else's success or beauty to make her feel less worthy. The woman who walks alone knows that comparison is a thief. It steals joy, peace, and authenticity. Instead of looking outward to gauge her value, she looks inward. She celebrates her own journey, her own milestones, and her own growth without feeling the need to compare them to anyone else's path. This unwavering sense of self-worth also influences the way she allows others to treat her. She doesn't tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or dishonesty because she knows she deserves better. She doesn't allow others to cross her boundaries or diminish her light just to make them feel more comfortable. Her standards aren't set by desperation or fear of being alone. They're set by love and respect for herself. And because she honors herself in this way, others are compelled to honor her too. The woman who walks alone isn't afraid of being misunderstood or misjudged. She knows that people will always have opinions, and she also knows that she cannot control them. What she can control is how she responds, how she carries herself, and how she chooses to move forward. She doesn't waste her energy trying to change people's perceptions of her because she understands a fundamental truth: people will see her through the lens of their own experiences, biases, and projections. She cannot control their lens, but she can control her own clarity. This deep-rooted self-worth also allows her to take risks and pursue her goals with boldness. She doesn't let fear of failure hold her back because her value isn't tied to success or achievement. She knows that failure is an experience, not a reflection of her worth. Whether she succeeds or stumbles, her self-esteem remains intact because it's not conditional. She learns, she grows, and she continues forward without letting setbacks define her. Her unshakable self-worth also shapes her relationships. She doesn't beg for love, chase approval, or cling to people who don't see her value. She understands that real connections are built on mutual respect, not desperation. She's not afraid to walk away from relationships, friendships, or opportunities that compromise her sense of self. She knows that her worth isn't diminished by someone's inability to see it. At the core of her self-worth is a profound acceptance of who she is, flaws, imperfections, and all. She doesn't pretend to be someone she's not to fit into a mold or to meet someone else's expectations. She's comfortable in her own skin, owning her strengths and embracing her weaknesses. This authenticity radiates from her, and it's one of the reasons people are drawn to her presence. But this self-worth didn't come without effort. The woman who walks alone has done the inner work. She has faced her insecurities, questioned her limiting beliefs, and dismantled the story she once told herself about not being good enough. She's had moments of doubt, moments of fear, and moments of vulnerability, but she's emerged from each one stronger, wiser, and more secure in her sense of self. Or self-worth is a fortress, not a fragile shell. It's built on a foundation of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-love. And because it comes from within, it cannot be shaken by external forces. It's not performative, it's not fragile, it's not conditional. It simply is. And this unwavering sense of self-worth is one of the reasons the woman who walks alone can navigate life's challenges with such grace and poise. She doesn't crumble under judgment, she doesn't waver under pressure, and she doesn't lose herself in the chaos of others' opinions. Her value is not up for debate because it's not determined by anything outside of her. It exists because she exists. And in embracing this truth, she becomes unstoppable. Resilience in the face of uncertainty is one of the defining characteristics of the woman who walks alone. She understands that life is not a predictable, straight path, but rather a winding road filled with obstacles, detours, and moments of profound doubt. What sets her apart is not her ability to avoid these challenges, but her capacity to face them head-on, adapt, and continue moving forward with determination. Resilience for her is not just a fleeting moment of courage, it's a way of being, a mindset deeply embedded in her approach to life. She doesn't crumble in the face of uncertainty because she knows that discomfort is often the birthplace of growth, clarity, and transformation. In a world where people crave security and certainty, she has made peace with the unknown. She knows that trying to control every aspect of life is not only futile but exhausting. Instead of clinging to rigid plans or resisting change, she allows herself to flow with the rhythm of life, adapting to new circumstances with flexibility and grace. This ability to let go of control doesn't make her passive, it makes her wise. So she knows when to push forward and when to surrender. And this balance allows her to navigate uncertainty without being consumed by fear. Her resilience is rooted in her mindset. She understands that setbacks and failures are not reflections of her worth, but opportunities to learn, grow, and evolve. When something doesn't go as planned, she doesn't fall into a cycle of self-pity or victimhood. Instead, she pauses, reflects, and asks herself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience? This level of self-awareness allows her to extract wisdom from even the most painful moments, transforming adversity into fuel for her personal evolution. But resilience isn't just about how she handles failure, it's also about how she approaches fear. Fear is a natural response to uncertainty, but the woman who walks alone doesn't let fear dictate her choices. She doesn't avoid challenges simply because they make her uncomfortable. Instead, she confronts them, acknowledging the fear without allowing it to paralyze her. She knows that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to act in spite of it. In spite of it, every time she pushes through fear, every time she takes a step forward, despite the trembling in her chest, she becomes stronger. Her resilience is also deeply tied to her sense of purpose. She knows why she's walking her path. And this sense of purpose acts as an anchor when the storms of life threaten to pull her under. When she's faced with uncertainty, doubt, or failure, she reconnects with her why. It's this internal compass that keeps her grounded and focused, even when everything around her feels chaotic. Purpose gives her the strength to persevere, to rise after every fall, and to keep walking even when the path ahead is shrouded in fog. The woman who walks alone also understands that resilience isn't about always being strong. There are moments when she feels exhausted, overwhelmed, and vulnerable. But she doesn't view these moments as weakness. She allows herself to rest, to feel, and to heal when needed. Resilience isn't about being unbreakable. It's about knowing how to repair and rebuild when life knocks you down. She gives herself permission to pause, to breathe, and to process her emotions, knowing that rest is not quitting, it's preparation for the next chapter. Her resilience is further strengthened by her ability to reframe challenges. Where others see obstacles, she sees opportunities. Where others see dead ends, she sees alternate paths. This shift in perspective allows her to remain optimistic even in the face of adversity. She doesn't deny the reality of difficult situations, but she chooses to focus on solutions rather than problems. This proactive mindset empowers her to keep moving forward, no matter how slow the progress might be. But another aspect of her resilience is her relationship with failure. She doesn't view failure as a final destination, but as a stepping stone. Every failure, every rejection, and every setback becomes a lesson. She doesn't internalize these experiences as evidence of her inadequacy, but sees them as part of the process. She understands that success isn't linear, and that every person who has achieved something significant has also faced failure along the way. Her resilience lies in her ability to rise again and again, no matter how many times she's been knocked down. She also knows that resilience doesn't mean walking through challenges alone. While she is strong enough to stand on her own, she's also wise enough to lean on support when needed. She surrounds herself with people who uplift her, who remind her of her strength during moments of doubt, and who offer encouragement when the weight of uncertainty feels too heavy to bear. Resilience doesn't mean isolation. It means knowing when to ask for help and when to offer it in return. Her journey through uncertainty is not without moments of fear, doubt, and hesitation. But what sets her apart is her ability to keep moving forward, even when the path is unclear. She doesn't wait for the perfect moment or for all the answers to reveal themselves. She takes action one step at a time, trusting that clarity will come as she continues to move forward. The woman who walks alone is not fearless, nor is she immune to struggle, but her resilience ensures that no obstacle, no failure, and no moment of uncertainty can break her spirit. And she faces each challenge with courage, adapts to each twist in the road with grace, and emerges from every storm stronger, wiser, and more determined than before. But her resilience isn't something she was born with. It's something she has cultivated through every experience, every setback, and every triumph. It's a testament to her strength, her courage, and her unwavering commitment to her path. The woman who walks alone lives with authenticity as her guiding principle. She understands that to be true to oneself is one of the most powerful things a person can do in a world that often encourages conformity and the suppression of individuality. Authenticity for her isn't something that can be easily imitated or put on as a mask. It's a deep connection to her core self, a commitment to show up in the world exactly as she is without pretense and without fear of rejection. She doesn't try to fit into boxes that society has drawn for her. Instead, she creates her own definition of who she is and how she wants to live. Being authentic is not always easy, especially in a world that thrives on comparisons and judgments. The pressure to fit in, to live up to the expectations of others, can be overwhelming. But the woman who walks alone has made peace with standing out, with being different, and with embracing what makes her unique. She doesn't look to others for permission to be herself because she knows that her value doesn't lie in fitting into a mold, but in expressing her true essence. She doesn't censor her voice, dim her light, or suppress her passions for the sake of acceptance. Instead, she chooses to speak her truth, even if it's unpopular, even if it challenges the status quo. Her authenticity allows her to express her thoughts and emotions honestly, without fear of judgment or criticism. She knows that pretending to be someone else only leads to inner turmoil, while embracing her true self brings peace and fulfillment. The woman who walks alone understands that authenticity is not just about self-expression, it's also about self-awareness. She takes the time to reflect on her values, her goals, and her passions. She doesn't let the noise of the world dictate her path. Instead, she listens to her inner voice, which guides her in every decision she makes. This self-awareness allows her to live with intention and purpose, aligning her actions with her values and desires. And her choices are made from a place of truth, not obligation or expectation. Her authenticity extends to how she interacts with others. She doesn't wear a mask to fit in, nor does she hide her true feelings behind a facade of politeness or conformity. She is transparent and honest in her relationships, allowing others to see her for who she truly is. This transparency creates genuine connections and fosters relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. The people who are drawn to her are not attracted to an image she has created, they are attracted to the real her. Living authentically means being willing to walk away from situations and people who don't align with her truth. The woman who walks alone doesn't tolerate dishonesty, manipulation, or inauthenticity in her life. She understands that surrounding herself with people who don't honor her true self will only cause her to feel disconnected and drained. She sets boundaries and removes herself from relationships that compromise her integrity, knowing that true connection can only occur when both parties are authentic. Authenticity also means embracing her flaws and imperfections. She doesn't pretend to be perfect or to have it all figured out. Instead, she accepts her humanity, her mistakes, and her vulnerabilities. She understands that being authentic doesn't mean having to be flawless. It means embracing the full spectrum of who she is, including the parts that are still evolving. Her authenticity is not about being the best version of herself at all times. It's about being real with herself and with the world. In a society that often rewards people for fitting into predefined roles, the woman who walks alone is a quiet rebel. She refuses to adhere to the norms that suppress individuality and creativity. She challenges the conventional notions of success, beauty, and happiness, choosing instead to define these terms for herself. Her life becomes a canvas on which she paints her own story, and she is fearless in doing so. Her authenticity also leads her to live in alignment with her passions. The woman who walks alone is not afraid to pursue what excites her, even if it doesn't make sense to others. She doesn't base her decisions on expectations of her family, friends, or society. Instead, she listens to her inner calling and follows her passions, whether it's in her career, hobbies, or relationships. This alignment with her true desires creates a sense of fulfillment that cannot be achieved by living someone else's dream. She understands that being authentic requires courage, especially when the world pressures her to conform. There are moments when she feels the weight of judgment, the sting of rejection, and the challenge of standing firm in her truth. But she doesn't allow these fears to silence her. She knows that authenticity is not a one-time choice, but a continuous journey. Every time she chooses authenticity, she becomes more of who she truly is. Authenticity also means embracing the unknown and stepping into uncertainty. The woman who walks alone doesn't have all the answers, and she doesn't have everything planned out, but she knows that as long as she remains true to herself, the path will unfold. She trusts in the process and is willing to take risks, knowing that even if she stumbles, she will always learn and grow from the experience. Her authentic journey is one of discovery, and she's not afraid to make mistakes along the way. Her authenticity attracts others who are also on their own path to self-discovery. She becomes a beacon of inspiration to those around her, showing them that it's possible to live life on your own terms. And by living authentically, she encourages others to do the same, creating a ripple effect of self-expression and empowerment. The woman who walks alone knows that authenticity is a lifelong practice. She will continue to evolve, to grow, and to change. But no matter where life takes her, she will always remain true to herself. In a world that constantly pressures people to fit in and conform, she stands as a reminder that true strength lies in embracing who you are, unapologetically and without compromise. And it is in this authenticity that she finds her greatest power.